Hey there. This is the friendly talking head for Ron Paul. I have to post a reply to your challenge that Dr. Paul should read the Federalist Papers. I'm going to start with a couple of points from your Took Down My Ron Paul video. I had to write this out for myself so I could collect my thoughts, and so please forgive my reading from my own notes here. But I just wanted to make sure I was really clear. You indicate that the neocons are dangerous, and yes, Ron Paul agrees, so do I. He doesn't believe the neoconservatives are serving the sovereign people. But rather they're serving the big corporations, and you also cite this as being undesirable and admit that you're in agreement with Ron Paul. I wanted to point out that at least we have, some agreements. You go on to say that libertarians, on the subject of libertarians, you state that you disagree with libertarians and think that free markets aren't just, are not beneficial to the economy, and suggest that a combination is needed. I don't understand your point. It seemed to be incomplete, but to me it did sound like being kind of pregnant. You really can't have both. You're either free or you're not. Okay, so on to the really brave thing. You bravely suggest, and I say bravely with my tongue firmly planted in my cheek, in another video, that the brilliant, really, he's brilliant, Dr. Paul should read the Federalist Papers. Well, there comes a point when there's an old expression, you shouldn't argue with an idiot because the people watching might not be able to tell the difference. And I have to say, neither Trudeau, David the Patriot, are idiots, and maintaining their patience in their replies very admirably. National government versus federal government. Now, for this discussion, I am referring to, can you see it? Black's Law Dictionary. Okay, and there's a reason for my going. Through all this trouble. I really want to put this thing to bed, and I also want you to get a feeling like, well, I want you to see the reality in Ron Paul supporters, that their fervent effort to rely on fact and to maintain their decorum when really trying to educate those around them, much like Dr. Paul does in these debates. In other words, I kind of would like to win you over, but it's probably not possible, but I really want to try. National government versus federal government. Black's Law. A national government is a government of the people of a single state or nation united as a community by what is termed the social compact, and possessing complete and perfect supremacy over persons and things, so far as they can be made the lawful objects of civil government. A federal government, on the other hand, is distinguished from a national government by its being the government of a community of independent and sovereign states, united by compact. Why do I bring this up? Because the Federalist Papers that you've challenged us to, and Dr. Paul to read, and the Anti-Federalist Papers were in fact all about whether the Constitution would emulate the monarchical model, or national government, or a true republic, a federal government. You seem to admire, prefer, and hold the former closer to your heart, whereas Trudeau, David, myself adhere to the latter model, which, by the way, indeed became our Constitution. A federal government with state sovereignty per their respective constitutions, and all other things held in reserve of the true sovereigns we the people. On an aside, since you admire so much the Madison notes, Publius, meanderings, I'd like to bring a couple of juicy points straight from Federalist number 10, which seemed to escape your attention. These regard your many references to democracy and democratic processes, etc. First, hence it is that such democracies have ever been spectacles of turbulence and contention, have ever been found incompatible with personal security or the rights of property, and have in general been as short in their lives as they have been violent in their deaths. Next, another reference. Theoretic politicians who have patronized these species of government, democracies, have erroneously supposed that by reducing mankind to a perfect equality in their political rights, they would, at the same time, be perfectly equalized and assimilated in their possessions, their opinions, and their passions. Third, this is not on the democracy subject, but it's just a little bit of additional history to help you understand why and how Dr. Paul's platform is so very true to the concept of constitutional government, a federal government. A rage for paper money, for an abolition of debts, for an equal division of property, or for any other improper or wicked project will be less apt to pervade the whole body of the Union than a particular member of it, in the same proportion as such a malady is more likely to taint a particular county or district than an entire state. Paper money has been an evil from the very beginning, and it is important for you to realize, I think, that so many of his platform principles are well modeled. There are some very astute economists who have done extraordinary work on showing how under a properly conducted federal government, with a limited federal government under constitutional law as they're written, with sound money, not paper money, that we could not only pay off our national debt, but be in the black, with Americans prospering as was intended and as was experienced in the first probably 160 or 170 years. It really wasn't until 1913 that everything went to hell in a handbasket, but there were challenges along the way. Jackson got rid of the banks, and it's now time for Dr. Paul to get rid of the banks too. Anyway, I hate to end on this historical note, but it is kind of interesting. Hamilton was shot and killed in a duel, completely putting to rest all of his arguments among patriots. I would rethink some of your Hamiltonian leanings. They didn't make it into the Constitution as much as he wanted them to be there, and Madison too, for that matter. Thank you for your time. I look forward to a response, and trust that we can maybe get you to come around to looking at things a little more thoroughly. That's all I think, of the posters and the replies that you've gotten have attempted to do. Sure, there's a lot of YouTubers out there without a decorum and not much of a vocabulary, but that's not exclusive to Dr. Paul followers. So, furthermore, the insinuations that we're crazy and that we are mob-ish, it really tends to, it's really a very weak form of argument. But anyway, well, thanks. It's been interesting.